I'll focus on three main things that I think really are important for AMBA schools. We operate in a context of high unemployment. And in a context of high unemployment, people then have to make a choice. Do I go to work and find a job because there are few jobs around, or do I advance my education? Right? So that's problem number one. Like, how useful and meaningful is this business education thing that you guys are offering, particularly the MBA program? Right? Problem number two then is the stock itself, the people, the quality of what we call basic education, which is high school education, is variable to poor, right? In many countries on the African continent, not enough is spent on basics of reading and writing and numeracy, which therefore means adults grow up with like barely literate enough to be really useful in business. So by the time you get them into business school, you have to go back a little bit and teach and support some of that stuff, right? That's problem number two, like the quality of the domestic market in terms of whether it's in one country or in multiple countries is variable. And so we don't have the riches of quality students that come to many of the AMBA schools, particularly in Europe or in North America, or even China and India, for example. They've got amazing stock of students that come to them. We don't have that privilege. Three, price point, right? So as an AMBA school, you have to be operating at a price point to pay for the quality that you are producing, to afford that quality, to afford those points of differentiation. That means the price point to the student is typically much higher than the price point of other schools in your region. Therefore, you have this conundrum of you want to produce quality, but quality comes at a price, and many of the students can't afford that price point. And that's just a school view. I'm just focusing on three school views. I could kind of explode it into national context issues like politics, government, inefficient infrastructure, a whole range of external factors that would bore you to death and depress you, but I just focused instead on very specific business school issues that I think are often underappreciated, but are equally important to set AMBA schools apart from non-AMBA schools. Most AMBA schools and other business schools outside of the AMBA community are all looking to drive impact. And I think partnering with schools on the African continent gives you an amazing opportunity to drive impact at scale. I can begin at impact at a micro level, where when we go to graduation and you see that individual student graduating, they typically are the first student in their entire village to get a master's qualification, right? And that is something really special. You can't put a price to that. Then when you scale it up to the cohort of students, you're then producing a cohort of responsible business leaders. Then you scale that up at a school level to say, what initiatives and programs do you want to invite into your space? For example, I mentioned that in our space, we invite climate issues into our space. We invite digital injustice issue into our space. We invite humane-related issues. And in the humane specifically, we're talking about women in leadership, racial representation, mental health issues. We're talking about really understanding this future world of work. When is it toxic? When is it transformative? So we invite those initiatives. You wrap that around, it helps us to make a contribution to addressing social impact problems, complex problems. And then we collect so many data points. Then the opportunity is for scholars to come and experience this at a micro level, for scholars to come and experience this at a cohort level, for scholars to come and help us to research and tell the story at a school level, at a country level. And you're getting access to data sets that are idiosyncratic, that are not easy to establish. that are wonderful to work with and that introduce the world to this abundant opportunity that is Africa. We are a case school, right? And oftentimes when people talk about research and impact, they get confused about journal articles, right? And so we then write journal articles alongside case studies, and then we weave these together. One of the cases I had the privilege of co-authoring was on a company called EOH that was caught up in a corruption scandal of scale involving state. The new leadership comes in. It's a leadership which is 75% women, 25% male, racially diverse. They come in and say, we understand that our biggest job is to rebuild trust with our stakeholders, with businesses. That it's the largest IT company in the country, with businesses, with clients, and so forth, international and local. They do so turning around this concept of trust and vulnerability and saying the best way for us to build trust is to be completely transparent and open and vulnerable to our employees, to our regulators, to our partners, to our clients, at the risk of shutting down their business. But we know if we do this well, not only do we save the business, but we kind of reshape it and take it to another level. Now, in all the literature that I've done as a trust scholar, vulnerability has never been an antecedent of trust building. It is part of the definition, but as a mechanism, using vulnerability as a turnaround strategy is unique to that company. Now, if we don't tell those kinds of stories, people don't understand the level of counterfactual, counterintuitive leadership you need to operate in our country context. To say, in order to build trust, in order to rebuild my reputation, I have to impale myself, actually I have to explode my reputation and then rebuild it. That's a different kind of mindset that leads a management team to make those connections. And these are few and far between examples. So for us, I just use that as a case study of resilience, of ingenuity, and of the kind of knowledge and insight that doing business in Africa would expose people to when we talk about resilience. So it's not resilience as defined in the traditional sense. It's a kind of cognitive resilience, emotional resilience, and social resilience that is really crucial to operate on the African continent. At a pedagogical perspective, we try and point out to our students early on that there are easier places to get an MBA than GIBS. Largely because a lot of the content actually is ubiquitous. You can get this content everywhere. We teach other people's content, they teach our content. So it's not about the product, it's about the process and the people. So we say you're gonna learn as much about from the content that we curate for you as you will learn around the experience that we create for you. We then take people that are used to operating in a very neat, safe, cognitively balanced space, and we drive them through a cognitive overload in a caring way, but still, like we push, push, push. And in the process of doing that, our students, when you ask them at the end, they say, of course I know all these interesting frameworks, but I've changed. I'm not the same person as I was before. Now I know that what GIBS magic means, it means you have an ability to manufacture time. Because now 24 hours means something completely different to me post the MBA than it was before the MBA. So we turn our alums into little magicians who are then able to say, there's so much that can be done. We never have to worry about work-life balance, because we've given them an ability to understand there's time to sleep, there's time for family, and there's time to work hard. And there's a way of navigating that in a resilient way. And it's through the process and the experience that we put them through, which is a combination of the case studies, the group work, the immersive experiences, and a whole host of things that we pull together to say, our magicians, when they come out as adaptive and resilient magicians that are ready to take over the world. For a student, ultimately, one of the things you want to do is to pass any course that you do. Right? And so if you want to make sure people take collaboration seriously, you make it part of the evaluation process. And how we make it part of the evaluation process is about 1/3 of their marks will be syndicate work, group work. Now, if you're highly competitive and you want to be top of your class, you better make sure you get to make that group work, that syndicate group work, right? And when we're assessing the group work, we take into consideration the output that has been given to us, as well as the feedback from each individual member of the group about how the group has performed, how each individual, so they do like cross-assessment with each other to tell us, so how much did Victor contribute? How much did Morris contribute? We take all of that into consideration in a space where syndicate groups are known for these stages of development, from forming, norming, storming, and so forth. It's amazing to watch these people who are there initially to compete because they're saying, I'm clever, I'm here to show you how clever I am. Realize that the best form of competition is collaboration. And it's in the design of the program to say, you will not do well if you blow up in that syndicate. In fact, chances are you will not pass if you blow up in that syndicate. So it's embedded in the design and it's evaluated and it's part of your success measure. And so for me, it helps people to think about breaking down silos in their organizations. So in a group, the groups are selected randomly, but purposefully to make sure that there's finance people, there's marketing people, there's operations people, there's strategy people, there's legal people in one group. So they see the value of solving problems throughout the year, and two, in a multidisciplinary team context. Then they realize, actually, the solution is not me going back into becoming head of marketing or head of finance, it's me being a general manager, yes, head of marketing or head of finance, but it's me being a general manager operating in a multidisciplinary team. I'm the 3rd dean of the business school since its founding in 2000. And I would love to take credit for driving the seeds of collaboration. But I can tell you from its founding, it was built on this notion of collaboration. First and foremost, how a university collaborates with business in country. So one of the things that stands out is our proximity. When we talk about close to business, we really mean close to business, right? For example, one of the chambers, the American Chamber of Commerce, is located at GIBS, right? The UN Global Compact local network in South Africa is located at GIBS. The Secretariat of the Association of African Business Schools is located at GIBS, right? So we're saying we want like really close to business, right? Secondly, we understood that we come from a context, so even though we're doing well in terms of our academics who are highly qualified, we don't have unlimited resources. So in order for us to give that global experience, to give that really impactful experience, we need to partner locally and internationally. So therefore, when we partner with international business schools, either in our region of Africa or globally, we're looking for gaps that we have in our resource stack and gaps that they might have in their resource stack. And then we find spaces for collaborating. So for us, partnership is not student exchange. That's a service. We're happy for that service. Partnership is I share my strategy, you share your strategy, I share my weakness of my strategy execution, you share yours, and then we say, how do we pull these together? How do I help you to achieve your goals? How do you help me to achieve my goals? Right? And when we do that, we speak openly with each other in a trusted space and recognizing that we're all driving a common good, responsible business management education. When I talk about in service to society, first and foremost, it's informed by this idea that leadership is an act of service. And as an act of service, you must be willing to listen and learn. And I often do this exercise to say, you can't learn if you're not listening. And it turns out listening has a secret word embedded in it, i.e. listen has a secret word embedded in it. And that secret word, if you spell it out, is silence. So you can't listen without being silent. Then we teach our students to say to be silent means don't listen to respond, don't listen to interpret, don't listen to be clever. Listen to really embed the message that you're receiving from society. Because in the process of that listening, you are learning. And then part of that learning is you're learning with society. You're not teaching society, we're learning with society. And when we're learning with society, it means we must be innovative and adaptive, that our curriculum, our learning methods are not there about just this degree, they're about how do I take this learning that we're all doing together and transform the spaces that we all inhabit as business leaders, right? And when we then are in service in society, it means we must be willing to speak truth to power. So more than 75% of our revenue, for example, comes from business, corporations. Now, if that is the case, you might think that we don't hold business accountable. We say, no, it is because of that we then have earned the right to hold business accountable. They give us money because we put up the mirror to say to them, when you do this, hurrah. When you do that, no thank you. All right? We become the conscience of business in society. We then help business to represent itself, to engage with civil society, with government in a responsible manner. If service is beneath you, because we know service is maybe something that's done by those people. If that's how you see the world, service is beneath you, then my friend, leadership is beyond you. Because in our context, in order to lead, you have to humble yourself to the context.